Guys, this is What If Deku Was Wolverine, Part 1. Now, let's start off the story. Now, last time I left off, I just posted a Gambit What If. Now, I'm going to hit you guys with What If Deku Was Wolverine. Now, this is going to be really well thought What If, and sorry if I feel a little bit down. I just woke up and I'm trying to get this done because I just got a flare of a new part of the story that I want to introduce in the script, but just dive right into it. So, we start off our story with Deku's childhood, like we normally start off with the What Ifs with. How does his childhood affect his current time, and how would him becoming Wolverine affect the whole continuity of the My Hero Academia universe? Now, it would start off in a warehouse, deep within the jungles and forests around the world, as he would have been in top secret organization that would have been in, well, let's just say cahoots with All For One. All For One would have tried to make a super soldier. Him already making his no moves, but him wanting to make somebody that was more discreet, someone that wasn't just a monster. He wanted to make somebody that was a weapon, a creature that was undetectable and could blend in with other quirk users, that wouldn't look like a monster, that could truly be a spy per se. So they would have started to experiment and started to clone creatures left and right. And they're starting off with cloning specific nomus into human DNA and making it a lot more, let's just say smoother, making them look a little bit more human. But every time they would have been born quirkless, mutated somewhat, or just born of some sort of mental deficiency, as pretty of these clone projects would have failed horribly and miserably. Other than the fact that they would have started to look in the past of what were, well, this organization's past plans, as they would have thought about bringing back a certain project that they made a few decades ago before quirks became a big part of society. When quirks used to be outlawed, when quirks were started to be used, quirks were called mutations. People with quirks were called mutants, as they would have looked closer into the decade and the past of the universe. Now, in this universe, the X-Men universe, like the Jubilee X-Men, Cyclops, Magneto, all those characters, they exist in this world, but they were like legacy characters, like decades ago. So a lot of their grandchildren and ancestors are in this story, and they're changed a little bit. Like how in this universe, Tetsu is a long-distant relative of Cyclops, or Colossus. So what would happen is, well, this organization, aka a spinoff of the organization that made Weapon X, they would have tried to bring back this project. Seeing that it was a big fail last time with the OG Wolverine, as in this universe, Wolverine wouldn't be seen for decades. People would think he was dead, or either he just went off the books. But they haven't seen him, and he hasn't became a problem for anybody around the whole world. Been looking for him for decades and years on top of years. As they would have started to, well, make the project be run up again. Them grabbing people off the streets and trying to modify them. As they knew that cloning wouldn't be a solid way of making the new Weapon X program, the new weapon of mass destruction, a weapon that would bring down any hero, any villain, or any person ever. It would be an unstoppable killing machine. It would be better than the Weapon X. It would be better than the OG Logan, as they would have tried to incorporate, well, new type of quirks within their new mixture of DNA. As they would have looked down orphanages, people on the streets, kids on the streets, trying to take younger attributes because their more undeveloped genes and body would have been more susceptible to the gene therapy they were going to be pitting onto this, well, human they would find. And eventually, over the years, they would have found Izuku Midoriya. Izuku in this timeline would have been a lot different, as Deku's parents would have died at a very young age,
as Izuku would have been in the foster care system going to house, but one house, he would have arrived into a mansion-like area on the coast of Japan, as he would have been there for a couple days, but him slowly realizing this place was not the best. Deku being about, let's say, 13, 12 years old at this time, as Deku had been looking around, realizing that this place wasn't the best. It was ran down and it was kind of like a Bat Cave type situation, like Wayne Manor, but without Alfred, like that type of dirty. As he would have realized that it was kind of pathetic here, but it was also creepy at night. People coming in and out of the house, and people even looking at Deku when he slept. Deku waking up in cold sweats. As eventually one day Deku would have gone to sleep, as he would have woken up in a lab, him being tied down and people telling him to calm down, as it would have pumped him up with a bunch of different chemicals, mixtures, and poisons, and them slowly bringing him back to life after each failed attempt, as his heart would have stopped and kept on going after they would have shocked him with more electricity time in and time out, day in and time out. As Deku would have been quirky in this timeline, but then realizing that Deku's quirklessness would have a blank canvas for them to work their magic on. As quirks are a lot more difficult to work with, or, well, natural born quirks are a lot more difficult to work with when they're using, well, let's just say, synthetic quirks, fake quirks, as they would have started to manifest and basically, well, let's just say, play doctor with Deku's body. And throughout the course of a couple years, Deku's body would have changed and changed itself immensely. Deku would become a lot more stronger over the years, muscular, and a lot more animalistic, as Deku's nature would have changed completely over the course of a few years, Deku being about 16 at this time. Throughout this whole time, Deku would have been growing and shifting, and his mutation started to grow a lot stronger. As what would happen is, well, Deku's claws would have popped in, Deku's whole skeletal structure being coated in vibranium. As in this world, multiple different X-Men characters and legacy characters from the Marvel Universe exist in this world at some capacity. As in this universe, Vibranium Wakanda exists in this world, and they're kind of in cahoots with Japan and America and all around the world. Them being a huge city and big culture in America and Japan, Italy, everywhere on the face of the earth. Everybody would know about it. Well, Wakanda. As Wakanda's vibranium would have been given in very small portions to different organizations of different countries, but them checking out the organizations first before they even gave them this powerful middle, as this organization would have been able to get their hands on it somehow, as they would have, well, coated Deku's whole skeletal structure in vibranium, giving him these bone claws and giving him incredible superhuman strength, stamina, agility, and a healing factor to cope with the vibranium in his bloodstream, and also the vibranium implant they would have done on his skeletal structure. Deku would have experienced so much pain during that time. Now, Deku's memories would have started to fade away, him slowly and surely remembering, and not remembering his own parents' names, voices, or even who they were, as he would have slowly forgot about Kachan and everybody else in his life, as Deku would have slowly been pushed down to somewhat insanity, as Deku would have been trained to be a ruthless killing machine, but also trained to be smart and cutting, and also be able to keep himself attained, keep himself, well, let's just say, focused, as it would have over the last few couple of years through his training, as it would have trained him to be a, well, spy. For him to infiltrate UA and get all their information and slowly and surely break down UA from the roots. Them slowly but surely trying to realize how they could possibly integrate Izuku Midoriya into Hero Academy, trying to make him a upstanding student in that class, and trying to push him into becoming the best he could possibly be, the perfect spy. Now what happened after this, Deku's abilities would have started to manifest, them adding more quirks into his bloodstream and into his body and into his genetic code, slowly but surely changing him and ripping his mind apart, but also ripping away a little bit of his consciousness, as Deku would be a mindless spy ready to do anything for the cause or anything that he was trained to do. Now, slowly but surely, as I said before, Deku would become smart enough, strong enough, and fast enough to be put into the program. Deku being about 16 at this time, being through a lot of legal laws, and them getting some inside help with other very cruel and corrupt members of the UA staff, they would have eventually been able to put Deku into Class 1A with Aizawa, and with a lot of the top tier students, the strongest students in the school, as they would have pushed them to their max, trying to get them to that level, trying to get him to that level of clearance so he can be a part of the top ranks of heroes, and slowly but surely get more into the inner workings of everything. Now, what would happen is soon Deku's abilities would have been trained a lot more before they would have gone on to put Deku into UA. Now I want to go a little bit over Deku's abilities. Deku would have the OG original power set Wolverine has with his regeneration, his healing factor, his claws, but plus his claws wouldn't be, well, his original claws. They would have been vibranium, giving Deku a lot more extra abilities like being able to absorb kinetic energy and dish it out, being also able to crush and pretty much use his own body weight as a weapon in itself, or not his body weight, but more of us his body. Deku being able to absorb kinetic energy would have given him a lot of other abilities as well, on top of just being able to dish it out and pretty much redirect it into blasts of energy throughout his claws, like basically, I guess, a sound fork or a wire, or like some like a pitchfork in a storm type of energy. So Deku been able to absorb a lot of kinetic energy, giving his healing factor a little bit of a break, because Deku's bones wouldn't be able to break at all. I mean, every time Deku took a really bad fall, majority of that damage would go straight to his bone structure, giving Deku a little bit of a break giving Deku's healing factor a little bit of a break. So basically, having all the powers of Black Panther, but not all the powers, but him being a lot more faster and lighter on his feet than OG Wolverine is, because he's a little bit lighter than Adamantium. Him also being a lot more durable, and him also being a little bit more stealthy wise, because, well, in this continuity, they would give him a couple other quirks to give him more of a spy edge. Now, Deku been able to, well, nullify his sound waves. Put it simple, Deku's footsteps, or just the way he moves, for a quick about, like, under like 10 minutes, Deku can make himself completely mute. Like, whatever he says, whatever he does, if he kicks a room or kicks a wall, sound does not bounce off anywhere. So from like a 6 feet radius, Deku can turn off sound in itself. Like, no one can hear him, nothing can hear him. So sound is completely just turned off by a 6 foot radius from Deku for about max 10 minutes. So that's Deku's extra quirk. Another quirk Deku has is, well, Deku can redirect energy. Not just like the way, vibranium can absorb a lot of kinetic energy. Deku can straight up redirect lightning blast, energy blast, laser blast, anything like that, and redirect it outside of his body using his claws as basically a watering wire. Basically being able to push out energy that he basically is shocked with, instead of just absorbing energy kinetically like vibranium does throughout his body normally. So basically, simple Deku was a lot of like 2 extra powers, plus also the vibranium skeletal structure. So yeah, that's Deku's abilities. So let's get into the story. So what happened as well, Deku would have been into UA. Him being put into Class 1A, him not really having to do the entry exams or the sponsorships. And then pulling a lot of strings, so Deku was just put into Class 1A and given a nice, recommendation, as I would have thought he was suspicious off the rip. But him just chalking it up to just new, fresh meat for him to mold into better heroes. As everybody would have been told to get ready, as they may have passed their internship exams, or may have passed whatever they had to do to get in here, but they haven't passed his test, as Deku is kind of confused but just stays quiet throughout the whole time. As Deku gets into his hero costume, or not his hero costume, but gets into his sports uniform, so everybody notices Deku's scars on the back of his spine, as a lot of Deku's quirks were injected through his spinal cord, and a lot of those injections of new quirks never truly healed, because Deku's body would have been able to heal from a lot of different things. But all the intense quirks that would have been in Deku's body would have been before they added his Wolverine abilities and before they added his vibranium skeletal structure. So a lot of his extra quirks like sound, nullification, and also being able to absorb and redirect energy, like I guess like Zuko when he can redirect lightning in Avatar. Basically something like that. All those two extra quirks were put into Deku the first year of the program after Deku was taken in by, well, Weapon X. Now what happened is, well, Deku would walk past everybody, people noticing all the weird and gnarly scars on Deku's spinal cord just directly down his spinal cord. As Deku would have gotten ready, been the first one out of the locker room. As everybody would have been told to throw the ball, as Deku would have been about the third one up, as he would have chucked the ball as hard as he can, Deku having an incredible, like being about like 2 times stronger than OG Wolverine. So he would have been able to throw it pretty strong. Deku basically acing the long jump. Deku's race going pretty one-sided. Deku would have been able to pass by everyone, him going Black Panther speed. As for Deku's speed, like Deku can run around the same speed as Black Panther. Plus, you know, his superhuman agility. So he can run about like, let's say like 2 miles faster than OG Black Panther. And then you've seen like some of the game theories, or I guess theories on Black Panther's speed. Deku can run pretty fast. Now, what happened for the grip test strength, Deku gained pretty good, and everything overall, Deku had gotten really good, scores. Now, Deku wouldn't show off majority of all of his other powers. Him just putting down superhuman strength and speed and bone claws as his quirk, or the government would have pinned him down as that quirk. As no one would really know Deku's extra abilities like sound, nullification, and energy redirection. Now, what happened is, well, Deku would have stayed to himself in the back of the room after everybody would have been given their syllabus and Deku walking back home. Now what would happen is after that, Deku would have gone into a nearby house near UA, basically a penthouse. Him being greeted by one of his mentors, people that would have trained him through the program. This mentor being named Victor. Now Victor's story would play a big part in Deku's lifetime. Not lifetime, but Deku's lifespan, as it would have played a really big part on Deku. Him being a lot more connected to Izuku than Izuku thinks. As Izuku would have said good morning, or not good night, as he would have stuttered over his words, him being kind of tired from the day. As he would have walked up his room, grabbing his backpack, chucking it against the wall, and starting to just sit down in the middle of the room. As you would have seen, that would be claw marks, scratch marks, stabbings, and basically all sorts of damages to his bedroom. Deku just being in a constant fit of rage every time he goes into his room and locks it. As eventually, we'll get more into that later. Now what happened is after that, the next day would have came. He would have walked into the room as Deku would have been in the back of the room. Now a couple students would have tried to walk up to Izuku, mainly, well, Momoya Yorozu, feeling some sort of attraction towards him, seeing that he was kind of cute. As she would have walked towards him, trying to ask him, how is he, or, you know, where you come from, blah, blah, just stupid questions. They try to start a conversation. But Deku not feeling the need to have a conversation with somebody that he's probably just going to double cross later on in the years to come. As Deku just scoffs and says, I'm not interested, and walks off. As he walks to a different part of the room, as, well, All Might would eventually burst into the room, telling the class that they're doing, well, combat training. As everybody would have been kind of excited, especially Bakugo, as everybody would have gotten ready. As Deku would have been given his hero costume. Now, his hero costume would have been made from the organization. The organization wanted to give him a stealthy type of approach, as he wouldn't be a hero for too long. As Deku would be given, well, version of, if you guys have seen X-Men Evolution, basically a version of, well, a Wolverine from X-Men Evolution's suit, like the orange and black, mixture. As Deku would have also had black hair. If you don't know that, Deku's, basically appearance would have changed a little bit. Deku having black hair and brownish, like, I guess hazel-like eyes. As Deku would have gotten ready. As everybody would have been told to get ready, as Deku would have walked past everybody getting into his uniform. As everybody would have saw it was kind of cool, kind of stealthy. As it would have been an X on Deku's belt. Them saying, what is that for? As Deku would have been confused, and them asking, so what's your hero name gonna be? As Kirishima would have walked up to him saying, hey dude, you look so manly, but also I wanted to ask you, what's the X for? As Deku would have kind of just looked at it, saying and trying to think to himself that, well, for Weapon X. Everybody would have kind of confused in the locker room saying, That's kind of not a very heroic name. As Deku would have said, it's heroic enough for me. As he walks past everybody, getting kind of irritated by everybody asking him questions like this. As Deku eventually realizes when he was waiting in the room for everybody else to catch up, as he realized that he has to be a lot more, I guess, he has to be a lot more believable. He can't be a lone shark. It will bring too much attention to himself. As he's here for a mission, he's here to break down UA from its structure, destroy it from the inside. Everybody would have got paired up like an original. That could be paired up with Ochaku. Now, guys, you can go in the comments and tell me like what type of ship do you want Deku to have. But I could possibly just have Deku literally just pull a Asaka or, you know, a Bolin, like an Avatar, just him straight up backbending. But, well, Deku would have gotten ready. Deku would have not talked to Ochaku, telling Ochaku to stay out of his way and to, well, keep close, keep tight, and don't get in his way, or else he'll cut off her arms. Literally saying that to the T, as he would have ran off behind her, as she would have basically very narrowly tried to keep up with him, as Deku would be sprinting down the hallways. Eventually, them going up the stairs, eventually coming across Bakugo. As Bakugo would have gotten really saying, "You're not going anywhere, punk," as he would have thrown an explosion off Deku, starting off the fight off rip very dangerously. As Deku would have narrowly dodged out the way, as he would have kicked Ochaku out of the way before she got burnt to a crisp by the explosion. As she would have get kicked against the wall, Deku not knowing his true strength yet, since he always trained against robots and thugs that could take the beating, as he would have kicked Ochaku against the concrete wall, knocking her out cold. As Aizawa would have seen, not Aizawa, but Oma would have seen this, as he thought Deku didn't really care much, as Deku showed a lot of rage in that kick. As Deku would have landed back down on the ground after he did that narrow side kick, as he would have jumped on the ceiling, basically using his claws to climb the ceiling, running up against, well, Bakugo. As Bakugo would have thrown another explosion, trying to blow Deku off the ceiling. As Deku would have jumped off the ceiling, cutting Bakugo's basically Achilles heel, knocking him down to the ground. As Deku would have grabbed Bakugo from the throat and about to literally slit his throat, as Bakugo would have been terrified. As Deku would have stopped midway before his claws touched Bakugo's throat. As Bakugo would have been terrified. But Bakugo getting the strength to pull one of his gauntlets and basically making a huge explosion, pushing Deku through about 3 to 4 different walls and literally rooms, knocking Deku almost cold out. As Deku's limbs and body would have been distorted, broken, and shifted, as Deku's muscles and the cartilage around his bones would have been broken, not his bones himself. As Deku's body would start to reattach and pretty much place all his bones back into place. As Deku would have gotten up, seeing his clothes a little bit messed up by a tad bit. As Deku would have literally hide behind a pillar, hiding in the corner over the smoke cloud that was made after the explosion. As Deku would have ran out the explosion smoke cloud, grabbing Bakugo by the neck and throwing him back down on the ground, Punisher style. As Bakugo would have thrown another explosion towards Deku, pushing him against the ceiling into another room above them. As Bakugo would have used the explosions to propel himself up through the hole he made, throwing Deku through it. As Bakugo would have thrown another explosion again and again and again towards Deku. Deku eventually dodging more and more explosions and throwing one good left hook towards Bakugo's jugular, as Bakugo would have been sent flying into another pillar. Deku doing a whole ass somersault, backflip, kick around, splint flip. I don't even know what he was doing. Deku was doing some, fucking Gambit, Daredevil, Nightwing type acrobatic shit, as Deku would eventually throw a huge gash against Bakugo's other gauntlet, making a huge spark and igniting a bigger explosion. As Deku would have reacted split-secondly, grabbing the gauntlet, ripping it off of Bakugo's arm, throwing Bakugo into a couple of pieces of rubble, taking a gauntlet and pinning it around his body, or pinning his body around the gauntlet, making a huge explosion. As everybody would have seen the smoke cloud dissipate, as they would have seen Deku's body ripped up to shreds with his literal ribcage and his heart exposed, as Deku's whole side of his throat being burnt off. As everybody would have been shocked, All Might thinking Deku was dead, but him slowly realizing that Deku started to heal. As Deku started to regenerate his body, him being back up, and him looking around, as he would have seen that his suit was completely demolished, but also seen that Bakugo was knocked out cold, as that Bakugo immediately needed medical attention, as some of the medicals or some of the medics on standby would have ran into the fake or false building. Deku running up the stairs and eventually finding Ida, as Ida would have said, "Haha, hero, I am a villain. You will not stop me." Him basically getting into the emotion of him being a villain. As Deku would have ran towards Ida, but Ida ran around him in a very much Flash tornado type movement, as he would have been throwing mean kicks, jabs, and knees to Deku's whole rib cage, knocking Deku down to the ground multiple times. As Deku would have gotten super angry, saying enough is enough, as he would have taken out his claws and would have literally stabbed through Ida's calves, like deadass cut them all up. Ida falling down to the ground in agony, as Deku would have kicked him out, knocking him out cold, as he would have grabbed the bomb or would have touched it, saying, "I win." As everybody would have been kind of not cheering because it was a lot of a very brutality type win. As Deku knocked down his own teammate, Deku literally multiple times cut and almost killed Bakugo throughout that fight. And on top of that, Deku literally used his body as a shield to save everybody else from the building from exploding. But Deku would have explained later on to everybody, as Kirishima would have tried to defend him because All Might would have tried to yell at him, saying that he saved Bakugo's life by taking the explosion. But Deku saying he didn't want to save anybody's life, he didn't want to get anybody killed, or else that would bring a lot of attention to UA, as he would have walked away. As everybody would have been kind of shocked by this, Deku also saying that he didn't want to save Bakugo, he just didn't want to blow up the building and make his regeneration, session be a lot more harder than it had to be, because he didn't want to, be growing his body underneath a bunch of rubble. So basically, Deku walks out the building, or out the room they're talking about, as Deku just goes back home after a few hours, everybody else going through their training and blah blah blah. As everything would have gone kind of semi-smoothly, as everybody else in the fight, like Ida, Bakugo, and Ochaku, would have gone to Recovery Go, getting patched up pretty good. Now, Deku would have been walking home after this, as he would have been hit with some sort of energy blast, as Deku would have reacted in about 2-3 seconds earlier than any human could possibly react, as Deku would have redirected the energy back at the blast that shot him, as the blaster or the shooter would have been knocked off his rocker, falling down the side of the building, as he would have saved himself, propelling himself forward off the ground, as he would have looked at Deku, saying that it's been a long time, Logan. As Deku goes on about how I'm not Logan, as Deku starts to look at him and they start to stare each other down, as another man tries to throw a huge amount of wind pressure towards Deku, as Deku dodges it narrowly, almost like cutting off Deku's arm. As Deku gets back up, as he would have started to literally throw jab against jab against jab against jab, basically trying to stab this man. As eventually this man would have kicked Deku through a few different cars, making a huge ruckus and alarms going off. As everybody from the side of the building would have seen this, as Deku would have gotten up and would have thrown another scratch, claws, and try to do.
So what's up, Mom? That one looks sexy. I'll say this to my camera real quick.
Bunch of over excessive kickflips and pretty much jabs towards this masked assailant, as this villain or figure would have eventually dodged out of the way, throwing a huge bolt of lightning towards Deku, as Deku would have been shocked by it. Deku redirecting the lightning back towards the opponent, as he would have been shot back into a few more cars. As people would have started to come out their building, seeing this whole event happening, as a guy would have seen there was way too many but pretty much witnesses. As the guy would have fled off, as Deku would have gotten up off the floor, coughing up some blood, with his body slowly starting to regenerate and heal up, as Deku starts to walk away. People asking him if he's okay, and a bunch of people recording and everything like that. As Deku would have ran out the scene and would have arrived to the nearby penthouse he was designated at. As Deku would have started to lay down, as he would have started to just try to go to sleep. Now, I'm gonna leave it up here, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and as always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.